Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and remember when he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with two other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. And we tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's good? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh edition of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football, and I got to tell you that I almost went AWOL. I was going to leave Greg all by himself here because yesterday was the Fiesta Resistance of garbage. It was so unsettling to me, and what makes things worse is that there seems to be such a steep climb back to respectability, the tough decisions, the tough division, the tough decisions, and so on and so on. But you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from this gentleman here. His name is Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm always good. How about you?
You are always good. You always have a positive attitude towards things, and I think that's what we need right now. First of all, what are your impressions of the game last night?
It was terrible. I mean, the only way you could put it, it's and I think it's a combination of things, and people are, you read stuff on X and people are saying, oh, there's a hole here and there's a hole there and all this other stuff, and it's never as bad as it looks. Mm-hmm. But I think when you take into consideration everything that's happened to this team this year, all the changes, turmoil, injuries, that this is what happens. It spirals out. You're playing teams now that are fighting for playoff spots. Bears are out of it. So I kind of like in the one situation where they had a 4th and 1 and they went to it in their own territory. And I actually applauded that because I said to myself, it's coming up to 4th down. I said, go for it. Yeah. What the hell do you got to lose besides nothing? Yeah. and it didn't work. So what?
It is distressing, though. And, I got this chat comment from Laz just seconds ago. And he says, I hope Greg doesn't defend this front office. Putrid and totally incompetent. Look at every single trade minus the lucky Carolina trade. What do you think, Greg?
I'm sorry, Laz. I'm not going to agree with you. It's easy to pile on. In fact, I was telling about what DJ said, where I saw it on X a little while ago, and that's what he said too. It's real easy to pile on after the fact. Everybody was king poles a few months ago, right? And things aren't going well, and so you want to clean house. Let me tell you what happens when you clean house. When you clean house, the roster as you see it, I mean, it's going to be whole new system on offense, whole new system on defense. So you might as well just cut the whole team, and then you're starting all over again, which is not the smartest thing to do. Good teams are good teams because they have cohesiveness. Okay, and they weather the storm. And I firmly believe Ryan is the right guy. Has he made mistakes? You're damn right he has. And he'd be the first one to tell you. There's no virgins in this business, man. I mean, we've all made mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
When Jerry and I were there, we made our fair share, but we also overcame those, and we were able to win. I'm going to go back to what I said last spring, and it's not. This isn't all on on Caleb. I said, what's going to happen if they start a rookie quarterback? They are going to lose. They are going to take a step backwards. Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Okay, and that's what's happening. And I don't want to hear about the guy in Washington or whatever. Every situation is different. Okay, and the big problem here is they've had some injuries to some key people in the offensive line. The offensive line has never been the offensive line that they anticipated being. And then some guys just haven't panned out. And one, I kept sticking up for him, was Braxton. And he just, it's like he hit a wall. And like Pryor's just a guy. Pryor doesn't deserve to be starting in the National Football League. Shelton gets overpowered. If he's playing against smaller guys, he can play all right. But if he plays against big guys, he gets killed. People were ready to kill Amagaji yesterday. Hey, look at Amagaji, and I'll stand up for this too as long as I can. Guy had no camp. When you got a rookie, especially a rookie who came from the FCS level like he did at Yale, and you have no camp, that sets you back so far because you don't have time in practice, nor do you have the practice days to go back and do the stuff that you do in camp. You only have 13 padded practices during the course of the season, the 18-week season. Why do you think they're doing a lot of these walkthroughs now? Because part of it's injuries and part of it is you're not allowed to even have a padded practice. So how is he supposed to learn?
Yeah.
What he's doing now is learning. He's doing on-the-job training, and he's going to, he had some good moments. He also had some bad penalties. He got beat for a sack. Tell you the truth, he only gave up 2 sacks. I thought it was going to be a lot worse going into that game.
I guess what a lot of people are complaining about regarding Amagaje is not so much that he might have potential to become a solid offensive lineman, maybe even better than solid, but the fact that you draft a guy from Yale who it comes to you with an injury. And therefore, why are you doing that? And why not put him on injury reserve and let him sit the season out? Why put him into a position where he's going to come into a game in a moment of need, and you're relying on a guy who's had no camp, who's had no experience? This seems to be GM malpractice.
No, I don't agree with you on that. Yes, he had no camp. He wasn't supposed to be a starter. He wasn't, reality is he's not supposed to be playing. We go back, and I use the Buffalo Bills. They've gone 2 years now with the same freaking offensive line. I mean, not the same players. They have 3 new players this year as compared to last year, but they got the same lineup week after week after week, 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, so here, everybody gets hurt. Who are you going to put in there? Borum's not going to be here next year. And Borum can't play on the left side. He's proven that a million times. So you got to go with that guy. Yeah, it's not going to look pretty, but you got to think about the future too. And hey, they're not in the playoffs. The season's over. Now it's about developing some of these young guys. I'll tell you, there was a bright spot. And I got to look up his name here because I can't remember the hell his name. And it was brand new last week.
His
name's Jonathan Ford.
Jonathan Ford. Yeah. Okay.
number 64. Played
He
the
was the
one
guy that was
technique.
picked up from the Packers, right?
Right. He's on the practice squad guy.
Mhm.
So I'm watching him. That's a 300. They don't have a guy like him. He's 330 pounds,
Right.
like 6'5", 6'6", 330 pounds. He's playing the one technique. He had 4 tackles in his first game. And he got a push when he was in there. Can he rush passer? No. But against the run game, he came off the ball. He came off low. He got a push. I saw him push that center back at least 5 times in the course of the game. And he didn't play that many snaps.
Yeah.
So to me, that's like, wait a minute. There's something to work with here. Part of it, he's probably got fresh legs and against guys who have been beaten up for 14 weeks. But at the same time, you saw a little bit of a bright spot, and that's what they've been missing since Billings got hurt.
Yeah. Best Meat Marinade says, switch Darnell Wright to left tackle. Don't put Amagaje in that position. That sounds to me like a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea. He hasn't played left tackle in 3 years, and he wasn't a very good left tackle. So who are you going to put at right tackle?
Then you put, Bourne was out, huh? Yeah. So you put
what you're doing is he hasn't done it. He hasn't done it at the pro level, and this is his second year at the pro level. He's got to switch his stance. It's playing right-handed versus left-handed, and it sounds good on paper. It's a disaster.
Yeah. Well,
and again, if this is August and it's in training camp, different story.
Right.
Now you got time to work things out.
I think that one of the indictments against Ryan Poles is that we're going to go into 2025, and the only lock for your offensive line is Darnell Wright. The other 4 positions, and this is after 3 years of being general manager, are up in the air. That's not a good look. That is
it's a valid point. And part of it's injuries, part of it's poor play. And yeah, they're gonna have to do basically, what Buffalo did. Kansas City did it a few years ago too. Sometimes it's because the guys are making too much money and you just got to cut the cord. But can it be totally turned around in 1 year? Yeah, if they get the right people, and it's got to be a combination of the draft and you got to hit it right in the draft, but a combination between the draft and free agency, and then you got to have a good coach. So that brings up, okay, who's going to be the coach? We don't know that yet. It's a guessing game.
Yep, and we'll do some guessing.
We're all pulling that, hoping Thomas Brown could do, show something that at least he'd be in the conversation. Well, now after 2 games and the way, you got a feel for the guy. He says the right things. He takes responsibility when he's supposed to take responsibility, but the team just isn't playing the way you want. And so, and Eric Washington, I think, is disappointed calling the plays on defense.
Yeah. There was a suggestion that Tevin Jenkins should play left tackle. Tevin Jenkins was a left tackle for part of his college career. Really
like 5 games.
Yeah, really doesn't measure up to be a left tackle in the pro game. Jamal made the suggestion. I don't think that will ever happen in his career. He's just not a left tackle, Tevin Jenkins. He's
not a tackle, period. He doesn't have the lateral range, lateral agility, the ability to come back. At guard, he struggles in pass protection. What the hell do you think is going to happen? Why do you think they moved him to guard?
Yeah.
Because he's at right tackle, he struggled.
Yeah, indeed. And I like this suggestion, Jenkins back to right guard. But the problem is Jenkins probably won't be back next year. You agree with that, Greg?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
too risky. Well, what if you give him a 1-year prove-it deal? Well, don't forget there's 2 sides to this.
Right.
You got his agent, his people that's looking for some money.
Yeah.
And somebody might give him some money because of the flashes.
Yeah.
So could he be back? Yeah. If he comes back, it is going to be a very inexpensive deal. And yeah, maybe you do put him back on the right side and then draft somebody to be on the left side or side somebody to be on the left side. I'd almost rather draft. I'd rather sign a left tackle, or you hope Amagaji comes back, but I think you can't count on Amagaji. You gotta, he's still a novice.
Right.
So but going out and try to get a left tackle, first of all, if you look at who's in free agency, who the hell's out there, you look at the names. There's some guards, but there's not a tackle that you'd want in there to be your starting left tackle.
Indeed. Ravi says, seeing Karan play left tackle let me know there is a degree of competence to Braxton Jones's play. Absolutely. And I think Greg has been saying that. When you compare Braxton Jones to other left tackles in this league, we could be doing a hell of a lot worse, right, Greg?
Well, I'm watching Amagaji yesterday, and when they put the end zone on and you see something and you go, that's easy to fix. Like his angles where this pass set are really off.
Yeah.
And so he's giving up that outside. Once you give up that outside shoulder to your opponent, it's all over. And then he's got to turn and you can't. So, and instead of, he just seems to be dropping straight back instead of out on an angle. And I don't know exactly what he's being taught, but I'm just saying that. I go, well, I can see why he got beat there. That angle was terrible. And so that doesn't mean he can't do it. It's what he's being taught to do. And a lot of it is he never got the reps in camp. That stuff that stuff he's learning on the job now that should have been happening in preseason. But he wasn't playing in preseason. So he's going through his preseason right now. I mean, reality, he's played like 1.25 games in his career.
That's exactly right. Jonathan Grenard, Brad Biggs talked to him after the game. Grenard was the guy who had a lot of success against Amagaji yesterday.
Grenard's the guy that I wanted to get in free agency.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning him. And Grenard said, hey, that kid has got a lot of potential. This was a tough assignment. He understood that Braxton Jones basically reported the concussion symptoms yesterday, so he was installed as starter in 24 hours before the game, and so he didn't have practice time. Grenard knew about his injury history. He says the kid, played well considering all those factors, and so that was a nice compliment coming from the opponent. And I don't think he was just talking smoke there.
No,
so
you know me, and I'm gonna. Yeah, I'm going to try to find a positive side.
Right.
I'm always going to try to find the positive side. But like him, that Ford kid, I'm looking for some good things. And there are some times when he really did a good job blocking. But the problem is with the left tackle. Same thing really with the right tackle. Darnell got beat for a sack one time pretty bad.
Yes, he did.
So when you're a corner or you're a tackle and you get beat bad, the whole freaking world knows about it. Because it's a touchdown if it's a corner, it's a sack if it's a tackle.
Yeah.
And so you forget about the big plays, but you got to look at the whole, you grade out the whole thing. And when you do that, you say, well, not really as bad as I thought. Yeah, penalties, those are bad. The one sack was horrible. But how about Kramer not reporting? He's in his third fucking year. How do you go out there and not only that, he's been doing this for half a season. How do you go out there and not walk up to the referee, say I'm coming in playing fullback?
And how come the offensive line coach, or in this case, it would be the running backs coach, not remind him before he goes out in that field, make sure you report.
Well,
he was interviewed after the game.
Aldo, that's on the freaking kid.
I agree.
That it's not like he hasn't done it every freaking game. He's played every game in a certain situation where he's gone to report. They're in a goal line situation and he's thinking about getting a touchdown and he doesn't do the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree. And to his credit, Kramer did take responsibility afterwards. He said it's 100% on me. And then when he was asked, shouldn't a coach remind you of that? He paused and then said, it's on me 100%. So credit to him for doing that. But I think the whole Doug Kramer experiment at fullback put a stop to that. That's just not working.
Other teams do it. I don't necessarily like it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen teams do it. There's more teams do it now than really ever before because nobody uses a fullback or very few teams use a fullback.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because he had a hell of a block on that play.
Yes, he did.
He just didn't report.
Yep. When he blocks, not carrying the ball, but when he blocks, he's very effective. But he just doesn't report. It's so funny now. It really is a joke. All right.
Hey, you know what? Now you you lose by winning now because now you're playing for draft pick. But I'm going to say this right now, and you're going to tell me I'm fucking crazy. They're going to beat Detroit.
They're going to beat Detroit?
They're going to beat Detroit. Mark it down right now. They will beat Detroit.
You know what? I would have agreed with you until I saw that performance yesterday.
First of all, it's at home. Second, Detroit. I don't care if Detroit is in Detroit and it's cold. They're a fucking dome team.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. That's an advantage for the Bears.
And they lost even more players, including
David
their
Montgomery.
founder.
Yeah.
Against the Bills.
Yeah.
And I think the Bills exposed some, they've been, Aaron Glenn has done a great job with that defense. Playing with mirrors. They have 13 guys. Now they're going to have 14 guys on IR because they lost another guy.
McNeil, the DT.
Yeah. So they're on the road. It's the second last Bears home game. I just think that, and they always have played Detroit tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a very close game.
Mm-hmm.
I think they win this game. I really do.
I think they should win this game, because the Lions are in big trouble. But I heard Dan Campbell today talk. He was on a radio interview, and he was throwing a bunch of F-bombs on live radio. And he was saying, nobody is effing going to feel sorry for us. You know what? We've been eating filet mignon, all of us, coaches and players, all season long. And now we're being served bologna. And now we have got to chew it up, and go out there and perform. And those are all words. But, man, was he inspiring. I wanted to go out there and put on a Lions uniform. For me, of all people.
No, that's why he's successful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if you watched all that game. I thought that when they tried that first onside kick, I thought that was a ridiculous time to do
it. Stupid.
Now, very rarely does something, how the result was a guy just gets it right in his hands and goes down. That very rarely happens. The last time I saw that, I can tell you when the last time I saw that. 1969 was a situation like that, and it was the Bills at New England. I was a freshman in college. I was, going to school there, and the Patriots were playing at Harvard Stadium. That was their freaking stadium that year.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been 1970 season, but it was one of my first 2 years in college. And I go to the game, and that same thing happened. Tried an onside kick. The Bills player picked it up. He scored though. And now, there was, I think it happened against Cleveland here in what year? It was Dick Duran. It was our first year, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
We were down by 14 points with 29 seconds to go.
Don Burr, Lions fan, says they did the onside kick because the Lions defense was so wounded. They were afraid to give the ball back to Josh Allen. And that's perhaps, a really good strategic thinking, but I agree with Greg. Way too early to do that. Give your defense another shot at stopping them, even if, they matriculate the ball downfield.
You know what? Reality, it's after the fact, granted.
Yeah.
Seldom does that type of play happen. You get the ball where the guy recovers it. But that ends up being 10 seconds later, and Buffalo's got a touchdown.
Yeah, unbelievable. Buffalo, I'll tell you, Greg, all praise to Josh Allen. Man, he is having one of the best seasons I've ever seen a quarterback have. This guy should clearly be the MVP, the player of the year. Whatever honor you can bestow on Josh Allen, he deserves it, doesn't he?
He's a man. I mean, he's so freaking big and strong.
Yeah. Can Caleb? Caleb is never going to be that big and strong, but can Caleb perform?
Caleb's big. Now, yeah. Caleb's not tall, but Caleb's big.
He's thick. Yeah.
Josh is like a good 6'5", 6'4" and a half, a good 240. Got good taste from women. He just got engaged to Haley Seinfeld. Did you see that?
Really?
Yeah.
Good for him. Nice job.
Buffalo's got their own woman star now to cheer like Kansas City.
I got a lot of great questions here. I've got 9 in the queue. Keep them coming. I want to, though, talk with Greg about the future of Ryan Post. And we've touched on this already, but Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune wrote like almost a mini book on reasons why Kevin Warren should consider moving on from general manager Ryan Post. And here is one paragraph. Wiederer talked to a former AFC executive who said, "What big-time coach is going to sign up, no questions asked, to work with Ryan Poles right now? If you are a serious candidate, you'll need to ask yourself, and more importantly them, what is the level of belief in Ryan, and where exactly does that belief stem from?" Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are you can always get quotes like that when they're anonymous.
Yeah.
Okay, put your balls on the table and tell me who you are. Okay, he had another thing in there. And I don't know who his sources were. I don't care who his sources are. But he said Flus was going to get fired by the Colts had he not gotten the head coach here. 100% categorically false. I think I got a pretty good source at that place.
I think you do too.
Okay, and because I sent him the article, and he was livid.
Oh, really?
Livid.
Interesting.
And then when you think about it now, who was the consultant doing the initial search?
Bill Polian?
Up until really a week before Flus got hired. Polian. Where'd Polian come from?
Indianapolis.
Okay. Do you think he's got some ties there?
I would say.
Okay. I mean, the guy's in the Hall of Fame. One of the best, he can be a jerk, but one of the best general managers that ever managed a team. Do you think he's not going to know that? Okay, I don't know who Dan's source was. I'm just saying that one wasn't accurate. Could some of the other stuff be? I don't know. I didn't read the whole article. I saw that, and right away, I sent it to my source.
But the argument, though, is still there, whether it's a fictitious AFC executive or whoever the source was.
Yeah, but you know what happens?
Aren't you going to have a hard time attracting a quality head coach if he doesn't know who the GM is?
There's only 32 fucking jobs in the league. They're lining up for it.
I don't know.
Right now, they are. They're lining up for it. And don't forget, when you go through the interview process, it's not just the Bears interviewing the prospective coach. The coach is interviewing the Bears.
That's the reason. That's the thing. Okay, that's the thing that's working against the Bears.
No, to me, that's the negative Chicago outlook. That's what they do here. They're negative. You know, I saw this stuff in Buffalo too, and all we could get was, you know, they got McDermott as the coach. He was, you know, they couldn't get anybody else. They got McDermott. What have they done with McDermott? This would be like the 9th year in a row they've gotten to the playoffs, or 8th year in a row they've gotten to the playoffs with the guy, and he was like, according to the media, way, way down.
I got to tell you, Greg, when you say that's the typical negative attitude, what the fuck do we have to be positive about? We've lost 8 straight games.
I
A
get it.
year ago, we
I
lost
just
12
can't.
straight games.
Not part of
What is there to be
it's
positive
not
about?
part of my soul thinking. I just can't do it.
Yeah, but it's
And part of it is that I worked in the business so long, is that I'm always thinking, okay, how am I going to fix it? How am I going to fix it?
I get it.
Okay, so you can't worry about yesterday. It's done. It's history. Now you worry about today and tomorrow, and it's like, how are you going to fix it?
Well, part of looking at history is to learn from it. You agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we learned that Ryan Poles, a former offensive lineman, had no interest at all in spending free agency dollars on quality offensive linemen, even if you're going to overpay them. You know about the Mike McGlinchey thing, who is starting at right tackle for San Francisco 49ers. Is he worth the amount of money the 49ers gave him? No, but he is still
no, he's not with the 49ers. He's with Denver now.
Excuse me.
I heard a lot. He was
McGlinchey,
with the 49ers when he became a free agent.
Okay. But nonetheless, you shared the story that Poles wasn't going to spend the amount of money that McGlinchey was asking.
No, I said he was good with the average. He was not good with the guarantee. And you know what? I 100% agree with him.
And that's the same thing that's being reported about his feelings with David Montgomery. He didn't offer the guaranteed dollars to David Montgomery, who is the type of running back the Bears could use. And he proved himself here in Chicago. The way that Poles is guarding against guaranteed dollars has proven to be a detriment to roster building. That's my feeling.
Now, just for the sake of argument here, one of the reasons why he didn't want to do that is because of the age, how long the guy's been in the league. He's already been hurt. He's already had an ACL. What just happened to him on Sunday? Did he tear an MCL and he's out for the year? Right at the most important part of the time of the year?
Yeah, he got injured last season. There's no doubt that because of his style of playing, he is never going to play a 17-game regular season. There's no doubt about that. But there is value in having a guy like Montgomery for 10, 12, 13 games a season if that's what he's going to give you. It's unfortunate he got injured, but you're using injuries as an excuse for the offensive line.
No, but the thing is, that's what a lot of, and I'm not just Poles, it's a lot of GMs, they use the analytics of the injury and they go, okay, and they got the geeks who do this shit, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but okay, player X is 29 years old, he's had such and such an injury, this has been his play history, this is what he's missed, what are the chances of him playing again at a high level? Okay, one of those players where they had that scenario, came up with that scenario, was with Quinn, and they let Quinn go. What's Quinn done since besides nothing? Okay, they also did with Khalil Mack, and part of it was money. They just had too much money going to old guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mack has still played pretty good, but he's still getting hurt every year.
Yeah. I understand it, and you make good points about it, but when you really delve into the situation, Brian Poles has made so many mistakes, so has been so imperfect in the building of this roster that it forces you to question whether he's the right guy moving forward. Isn't that fair?
It's fair. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm going to say this. I said it to you before we came on. If he was going to get fired, he would have already been fired.
And I don't agree with that because that would have
been you don't. I just think they would have gotten rid of both of them the same day.
Yeah. I think that the relationship between Warren and Poles right now is teetering. And, I don't know if even Warren has made the decision on what Poles' future is. He's got 1 year left on his contract.
Now here's how I counter that. If he was going to keep him, which I think he is,
mm-hmm.
Okay, that gives them that heart. They're already working on doing the research, doing the vetting of potential candidates. Okay, you can him throw all that out the window, because now you got two people to hire. You got a coach and a general manager. You just set the timing back a whole lot. Where if you would have fired him when you fired Flus, elevated Ian to interim GM. See, same as with Thomas Brown. See how Ian handles the job, even though it's totally different in that situation, especially this time of year. But to me, it sets you back. If you're going to do it when you make up your mind. I don't think it doesn't help the situation. It hurts the situation by waiting until whatever the date is of the last game.
Okay, you're making good points. There's no doubt, but I a lot of people are talking about Ian Cunningham and all this. He could be a great GM. What proof do we have? We don't have any proof that he's a qualified. That qualified isn't the right word. That he could be an effective general manager.
What Ian has is he's got a pedigree that's pretty darn good. He started off with Baltimore, which everybody in the league will say pretty much has the best personnel department in the league, starting at the top with the guy who hired him, Ozzie Newsome, and Ozzie's there just more or less as a consultant now. And you got the other GM, George is there now as the or Eric DeCosta is there now as the GM, and Eric's been there forever and a very good guy. But all the guys from that organization have gone on to better jobs, but then he leaves there and he goes become vice president of player personnel with the Philadelphia Eagles, and Howie runs a pretty damn good ship too. So he's been with really good people and he's learned from the best of the best. So you think that because of that, he's going to be pretty good. Okay, you never know until you see the guy. I mean, I don't know the guy, so I know Ryan. I don't know him, but I do know they're joined at the hip.
Yeah, they are joined at the hip, and that's another reason why I think maybe Ian would not want to assume the interim GM job.
I don't think he'd have a choice. I mean, you can't turn that down.
Yeah, it's just you would put him in a really awkward position because those guys are tied at the hip. They are brothers, so to speak. But be that as it may, I want to ask you about Caleb Williams because there's debate in the chat room about his effectiveness. First of all, do you think that this season we've seen growth in him, or are we getting to be concerned that perhaps all of this losing could be damaging to this young quarterback?
I don't believe it's damaging. I mean, you go back and look at the history of some of the top quarterbacks that ever played the game. One was the announcer last night, who I think is terrible as an announcer, but that's another.
Thank you. Yes.
First of all, the guy doesn't do his homework, and I don't respect people that don't do their homework. And that it wasn't just yesterday's game; it's every single freaking week.
Agree.
He doesn't do his homework. Tony Romo used to do his homework. He doesn't anymore. You can tell when they've done it. Greg Olson does his homework. But anyway, Aikman was awful as a rookie. The team stunk, and he was worse. Peyton Manning threw 28 or 29 interceptions as a rookie.
League record, yes.
Okay. What's Caleb hadn't thrown one in 10 games now? Something like that?
Yeah, that's right.
That's a league record too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all growing. Is there he goes up and down? And I don't know. I can't tell you the reason for that, because there were times when, when you see the end zone, you can see there's guys there and he's not getting the ball out of his hand, whether he's not sure of himself or he's thinking about the guy knocking the hell out of him coming in. I can't answer that, but there's times when there were throws there. So basically left throws on the field. That's concerning, but still the whole process is a learning process, and he is going to be that much better. There was a thing, I guess the over-under on sacks was 7.5 last night or something.
Mm-hmm.
I saw. And you got sacked twice. So if you took the under, you won. That
would have been nice.
He was playing really good when Thomas was the OC and not the head coach.
Yeah.
Okay, now he's, and I don't know, again, we don't know what's going on, but Beatties takes over as the OC, and Thomas really is, but there's just something that's not clicking that was clicking for the first 3 weeks. And the last 2 weeks, it hasn't clicked. And he was, before that, he was getting the ball out of his hand. He was throwing for 250, 300 yards. Yesterday he threw for 180 or something. He still has some dynamite throws, but there's plays that that are there that he's not making. And I don't have the answer for it. I really don't. It's got to be in the building to know what's going on and know what they're trying to ask him to do. But it's crazy. And like I said, they almost lose by winning now. But you want them to win. The players need to win.
Absolutely. I read those quotes in Brad Bigg's 10 Thoughts, Cole Kmet, Caleb Williams, Kevin Byard, a veteran, and when a veteran says, this just isn't our season, that to me is, we're not going to win another game. That's what it sounds like to me. There is a, and I hate to use this word, but there is a cancer inside that locker room right now that only a strong head coach who knows how to change cultures, like John Fox did with the Chicago Bears, much as I disagreed with him on other things. But we need the next head coach has to come in here and change the culture. And I tell you one thing I am worried about with Caleb Williams. He's lost his record in his last 20 games. I think it's 5-16. He's lost. He lost his last 5 out of 6 at USC, and what you pointed out when you were doing your quarterback evaluations last year. And this season, he's losing. Now, it's not just him, of course, but it would help if he, performed a little better in the first half of football games. So
I wish I had the answer to that. I don't know if it's on him.
Yeah,
it's on the play calling. I don't know what the answer is. Why is he like 10 times better player in the second half than he is in the first half?
I don't know.
I don't have the fucking answer. Excuse my language. I mean, it's frustrating, and it's. But let's get on to this season's dead.
Let's get on to some other things. Yeah, let's talk about it. You
okay? We can forget the Thomas Brown thing's not going to happen.
No way.
Right? It wouldn't sell. I mean, put it this way. I guess if he beat Detroit, Seattle, and Green Bay, he'd have to be in the conversation. Mm-hmm. But come on, is that going to happen?
Yeah. No, it's not going to happen.
Okay. But I still say, I think they're going to beat Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to play the day after Christmas. You got to play Seattle here on a Thursday night, and Seattle's got to travel from Seattle. Going on a short week, that's hard. That's real hard to do.
Really hard, yes.
So that's an advantage. It's an advantage for the Bears. If these guys got anything left in the tank, and I'm not going to say left in the tank, left in the heart, and the competitive nature, they can win those 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit, because of they've gotten the hell kicked out of them, and that vaunted offensive line, Buffalo made it look pretty shitty the other day. Now,
yeah, I have to say one other thing though. who was it? DJ Moore says somebody's going to blow a gasket, meaning that someone is just going to go off on management or just start whatever.
He already
And
did.
yeah, he's already done it. Jalen has already done it, and so forth. Here's my problem: that you got the team captains, Cole Kmet, Jalen Johnson, DJ Moore, talking in this ultra negative way. To me, if I was the head coach, I would bring those guys into the room and I would say, in the strongest possible ways, I don't care about being their buddy or anything. Stop.
I
behaving
agree
that
with
way.
you 100%.
Yeah, because that's part of the cancer. Metastasizing.
And I'm going to tell you, where this started? My own opinion, It started with Flus. He let it happen.
Yeah, I agree. No more team committees and shit like that.
Well, first of all, yeah, we got a leadership council, and we got 42 guys out of the 43 on the leadership council. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
That means you got nobody. Okay, and then you got everybody's got their show, and it's like, hey, like what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
What goes on in the locker room stays in the freaking locker room.
Absolutely.
Oh, the radio guys love it because they got fodder.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez. All right, so you have
Jocko says too many captains. You're right.
Yeah.
You should have the 4 captains. You should have 2 on offense, or even 1 on offense, 1 on defense, and a special team.
That's it. That's all you need. And if you want to have a what is it called? A rotating 4th captain, to reward somebody for the leadership they exhibited throughout the week, I would consider that.
Hey, hockey's got 1, and it's considered like the honor.
Yeah.
To be, and then you got 2 associate captains. And hockey roster is what, 25, 26 players?
20 players, I think it is, yeah.
So, and if a guy becomes a captain, it's a real honor because he runs that team from the locker room standpoint.
Yeah, indeed.
Now, we had them here. We had guys who could do it.
Yeah.
We had Owen, we had Brian, we had Ruben Brown, Thomas Brown.
I somebody just posted, can Ditka come in and give them an inspirational speech? Well, first of all, Ditka is so ill right now. I don't think he can do that. But I'd love to see Olin Kreutz go in there and kick some ass. What do you think of that idea? McCaskey's not going to allow that, of course, but
I don't know. I mean, I think there's some ill will there. I don't know that for sure. He hasn't been over there in a long time. He doesn't take part in the alumni stuff.
That's too bad.
And I know what part of it was, and this is on Ryan Pace. Harry wanted him to be his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And then they offered him a contract, and Olin laughed at the contract.
It was like minimum wage.
Oh, I don't know. He was like, "What the fuck? Are you fucking crazy?"
Right.
And that's what started it.
Yeah,
and that was on Ryan Pace.
Yeah, and then McCaskey publicly denied that was true, and then Olin went to social media and says, "Yes, it is true." So yeah, I don't think the McCaskies are ever going to invite Olin Kreutz to anything Chicago Bears related.
Well, no, he's one of their. You can always kiss and make up.
Yeah, I hope they do.
But Olin is hard headed.
Mm-hmm. Is he living in Hawaii?
No, he lives right across the street from the Bears facility.
Oh, okay.
Literally, he lives. You got that's Conway Park on that north side of Route 60 there.
Mm-hmm.
On the south side, down about a quarter mile, is still Conway Park. There's a golf course, Conway Farms, and then there's a housing development. He lives in there. Yeah. I had a text conversation with him Sunday because I was doing a player for one of the agents I do work for, and it was a defensive end / outside linebacker guy. And I'm watching, and the guy that's jumping out is number 41, which is Olin's kid.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and Olin's both his sons are starting for Illinois. His one son, the youngest son, is the starting. He's a sophomore. He's the starting Mike linebacker, and his oldest son, they're only a year apart, is the center.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm watching. He's really good. Not big. He's probably only 225, but he's got great instincts. So, I was texting back and forth, and he, told him what I thought. In fact, let me see if I can, because I thought he was being a little too hard. He goes, "Oh, he was all right." And then when against Northwestern, he threw it all away or something. He didn't play good. I said, "Hold on, I think you're being a little bit too critical of your kid here."
That's funny. That is funny. All right. So you've been giving some thought to what could potentially be a dream team coaching staff for the Chicago
I
Bears.
got a lot of names, but I got one. Everybody's it's Johnson or bust. Well, nobody can sit here and guarantee that Johnson is going to be the be all end all.
I agree.
I mean, Mike McDaniel, when he goes to Miami, super genius from Harvard or wherever he's from, he's going to turn Miami around. Well, has he turned Miami around? Hell no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And far from it. They're not a very good football team. This happens all the time. Robert Saleh, great guy. Oh, he is going to be the coach. He's going to lead the Jets to the Super Bowl. Excuse me. Of course, then again, it's the Jets, and because I work for the Giants, Jets suck. But no, he fails. I mean, it happens all the time.
All the time.
So, you can't say it's him. I mean, I posted it on Sunday, and I'm not a big Brady fan, only because I don't think he's ready. And not because, but I said Brady game plan was a lot better than Johnson's game plan.
Sure,
that offense was dynamite.
Oh,
I mean, just the stuff they do, the way he calls the plays, and some of the stuff he comes out with, it's like, wow, this is really good stuff. And some of the misdirection stuff is like, he totally out Ben Johnson in that game. And that was my opinion anyway. And somebody's, well, Detroit's defense is hurt. I don't care if Detroit's defense is hurt. It was the plays. Plays were good plays. And yeah, he's got a great quarterback, no question. Yeah. So Brady's got to be in the conversation. Johnson's got to be in the conversation. People bring up Liam Cohen. I don't think anybody ever heard of Liam Cohen until a couple of weeks ago. We talked about Liam Cohen last spring. Remember? Right. Yes, as a potential OC, another guy from the Sean McVay tree. But Liam Cohen this is his fifth spot in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we went back and forth between the Rams, Kentucky, in 4 years. Like, he was at the Rams, goes to Kentucky for a year, goes to the Rams for a year, goes back to Kentucky for a year, and now he's at Tampa. So, and he's done a good job, done a real good job. But this is really his very first year as a professional play caller. Mm-hmm. Called at the college level. 2 different years he called it at the college, 2 years at Kentucky. What happened to him was he knew he wasn't going to be a play caller with the Rams because he was the quarterback coach. So he had people in front of him. I think O'Connell was in front of him first. Mm-hmm. And then O'Connell leaves. But he knows he's not going to be the play caller, so he leaves to go to Kentucky where he can be the coordinator and be the play caller. But he's only there 1 year, and McVay brings him back as the coordinator, but he's still not the play caller. And that frustrated him, so he went back to Kentucky to be the coordinator, and then, did a good job at Kentucky. But then this year he's down at Tampa. He's done a good job. But, yeah, he's a guy you want to talk to. Is he a guy you want to hire? I think it's way too soon. That's just my own personal opinion. Mm-hmm. Brady has been – this is his second full year with the Bills as the play caller. It was really 2.5 years as play caller. Was a coordinator down at under Rule at Carolina. That was a disaster. I don't think it was all on him. I mean, they didn't have any freaking players either. That whole thing was a mess under Rule. But he's also the guy that developed the passing game at LSU when the Bengals quarterback was at LSU and they had Chase as the receiver. I mean, you know, and they won a national championship. So he's got some skins on the wall. I just, you know, he's young. Can he handle the whole team? I don't know. I mean, that's what the interview process is for.
Exactly.
Okay, you got to talk to Aaron Glenn. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. You got to talk to Slowick at Houston because he's done such a good job with Stroud. I'm still going to jump on the table for Tobe, but that's going to be on Poles. I mean, Poles work with him too. If Poles doesn't see it, then he's not going to do it. Of course, that way I look at it as Poles doesn't see it, he's blind. But he didn't really. If you go back to 3 years ago, Poles was handed that final 2 list type of thing. It's not like he did the preliminary work. And then there's Vrabel, and Vrabel is the only guy there who's been a head coach, and he had some pretty good teams at Tennessee. The last couple of years were not good. John Robinson was the GM. John Robinson's the guy that hired him. John made some mistakes, and then he trades away his best receiver and Brown to the Eagles, and you know their drafts as a whole were not very good. Does Vrabel get buried for that? I mean, his first offensive coordinator is LaFleur. But
Right.
LaFleur leaves after a year, and then he brings in Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith gets a head coach after a year. So I don't remember who we had the last year. I didn't even look, to be honest. But here's I'm thinking, you know, people say, well, you got to have an offensive guy because if you hire a defensive guy, you're going to get you're going to lose the coordinator if he's any good after a year or two. Well, first of all, that doesn't happen. You might lose him after 3, but you're not going to lose him after a year or 2. Okay, it very seldom. It happened with LaFleur, and that's one of the few times that it really happened. So I'm thinking, I go, you know, who's going to get fired? Probably get fired. We don't know for sure. Brian Daboll. People, Daboll done a terrible job in New York. Yeah, he hadn't been a good head coach in New York. Who got that off? The Brady offense is actually an offshoot of Daboll's offense in Buffalo. Daboll's the guy who developed Josh Allen. He had Josh Allen from the get-go. And, you know, took Josh Allen from a guy who just had traits. But, I mean, his first 2 years in the league, Josh Allen was a 54% thrower his first year in the league and a 58% thrower. His second year jumps 10 points to like 68.5 to 69% his third year in the league. It's all Daboll. Daboll did and that offense was crazy good. There's your OC right there. If, in fact, he gets fired by the Giants. And now, say, what's the connection? Vrabel and Daboll were in New England together for 4 years. Daboll as a player, or Vrabel as a player, Daboll as a coach.
Let me ask you about one other guy who might be available for interviews. We don't know because of his problems with the league, and that's Brian Flores.
I don't even know if he'll get interviewed.
Yeah, and that's what I just said. Brad Biggs, though, and John Greenberg over at The Athletic went into the Vikings clubhouse to get the temperature about Brian Flores. And boy, oh boy, do they love him there. In fact, one player said, if you guys hire him as head coach, I want to go with you. I want to go with him. I mean, that's the devotion that he's created. And one of the players said, yeah, he made some mistakes with the rookie quarterback at Miami, but I think he's learned a lot from
a lot more than that.
Yeah, I think he's learned from Tomlin and the present head coach that he's working with, O'Connell, on how to handle players like that. But you think that's
it wasn't a player thing. I mean, yeah, he made mistakes with Tua. First of all, he had and as general manager, it wasn't a race thing. He had an African American general manager, Chris Greer.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris is a good guy. I've known him for a long, long time. Very capable guy. And the way I hear it, totally bullied him. Like a lot. Like, it wasn't good. Then there was a friend who, he got he had one decent offensive coordinator. Guy retired. Didn't want to work anymore. Was going to bring in a guy to offered a guy the job.
Mm-hmm.
The guy calls the previous guy. Says, you're out of your fucking mind. Quote, you're out of your fucking mind if you go there.
Wow.
This guy will not let you do what you want to do. He is a micromanager and you will do what he wants to do. All his coaches do what he wants to do.
Ooh, that's not good.
No, and that's why. So none of this stuff comes out, and you're gonna, there's gonna be people in the media, but the people in the league already know this. I'm not saying anything that people don't already know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also got the lawsuit going on with the league. There ain't no way in hell he's getting a head coaching job with that lawsuit there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to agree that there's a lot of stuff that the McCaskey would cringe at just the mention of his name, is my guess. So
I don't know. If that's like cringe at the name, and in fairness, George's going to do what his people want, but it's when you look at what happened, and then on top of that, the lawsuit would have to go away. You can't have a head coach on your team that is suing the league. Coordinator, different story.
Mm-hmm.
Coordinator is like he's not running the team; he's running the defense.
Right. Yep. All right, let's turn our attention to some of the questions. I collected quite a bit here, so let's see if we can get through most of them. First of all, I'm going to skip a couple of these. Cornelius says, Poles is the victim of a shotgun marriage to a bad coach and injuries on both the OL and DL. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
Okay, Cornelius. 1 point for you.
And I don't, that brings me up to Weeder said, Weeder put in that article that it was all Poles' decision. It wasn't forced on him. I don't believe that for a second.
Really?
I believe he was strongly advised. It's your decision.
By George or Bill?
By Polian.
Okay.
George wouldn't know. Polian would say.
Because George told Ryan, according to George, here are our 3 finalists. I'd be fine with any one of them, is what he said at the press conference.
Right. I know what it said. Okay. And the same thing it was said that Ryan Pace hired John Fox. No, he didn't. Ernie, of course he did.
That's right. Okay.
Rookie general manager, we're helping you make your decision.
Yeah. Interesting. Best meat marinade says, from Olin to Yurko, they know the McCaskies are the problem. What do you think about Olin, Kreutz, and Yurkovich?
I know what Olin's problem is there, and that's fine.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I can speak for myself, and players are downstairs. We were upstairs. Remember the old show Upstairs, Downstairs?
Yeah, sure.
Um, and George at the time. Now Michael, whole different animal. Michael's deceased now. Way before we got involved, Michael was the boss, I guess, and there were some problems that went on there, but Mrs. McCaskey kind of pushed Michael aside. And after that, Michael seldom got involved. He wasn't even there all the time. George is there on a daily basis. George was there when I was there. George was, ran the ticket department. I think, I've told the story.
Sure.
But, okay, this is a guy who we want to be friends with, and I like George. And I know how's the term? He knows what he doesn't know. And there's a lot of people that don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has been public about that, basically saying I'm just a fan and I leave the football decisions to football people. And so that's been good.
Yurko's never been in the building. I mean, Yurko played that team up north.
For the Packers, right?
Yeah, fuck him. I mean,
That is great. All right, next question. This is interesting here. Ravi says, is the board of directors just McCaskey family members? What can you tell us about the board of directors for the Chicago Bears?
I mean, there's a lot of McCaskeys on it, but there's not. Who's the guy that has 20% of the team?
Oh, gosh. I know who you're talking about. The gray-haired guy.
Yeah, the guy who owns Aon.
Bears board of directors. Let me look it up real quick. But do you think that there's a chance?
There's two other people that aren't McCaskeys that I know are on the board.
Pat Ryan?
Pat Ryan's one. And there's another guy, McKenna or something like that.
Yeah, there you go, Andrew McKenna. Now, I don't know if he's still alive. These people come and go so fast. It's the 2024. Oh, that's college. What's going on here? I'll look for it while we handle the next question. But let me ask you this. Do you think that there's a chance that another member of the McCaskey family will be elevated to chairman just because George is getting up there in age? And
George is 68, 69.
Okay. So he may want to retire. This has been a big headache for him.
Well, I mean, the next in line would, if you're just going by right of birth, it would be Patrick, but it shouldn't be Patrick. If it was going to be any McCaskey, it would be Brian.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you the next question, which comes from Vince. Greg, is Warren getting in the way of polls?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not a Kevin Warren fan. I just said there's guys that know what they know and don't know what they don't know. I think he's one of those guys that don't know what he don't know. And considers himself a football guy. Now he'll probably be banned from Hallis Hall. Considers himself a football guy, and he's not. He's an attorney.
Right.
He's an attorney. He's an administrator. Wants to be in the forefront. Politician. That's
enough said.
I had a conversation with a beat writer, and he said, I'm not going to say who it was, but he said, but he's been around, and he said, Ted knew what he didn't know. Basically what I'm saying. And left it up to he said he got a lot of heat for some stuff that he didn't deserve to get heat for, and left a lot of decisions up to, the football people, and didn't try to make a decision on something that he just didn't know. This guy said, I don't see Warren like that at all.
It's interesting. I went back, Greg, to read an article about this whole thing that the NFL has allowed now joint venture partnerships to gain ownership of football teams. Not
10%, I think they can own.
Yes, up to 10%, exactly. And so Kevin Warren was asked about that. This was months ago when the league first announced it, and he said, "We're not there yet. I will be studying day and night all of the details behind joint venture partnerships and see if that's something that would be good for the Chicago Bears organization." So fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, he is saying, I am going to spend day and night looking for the next Chicago Bears head coach with Ryan. This to me is a bad sign. This is scripted shit that he comes up with to assure everyone that he's on it. I'm working on it. You aren't working on shit. Let's see some
we just got done with election season, and you make all these promises.
Yes. Oh,
let me tell you what I'm gonna do.
Exactly. Well, they got a hand in your pocket,
and then they get elected and they don't do a frickin' thing.
Yeah.
It's the same old thing. The joint venture thing, you know what that is? What it gets down to?
Mm-hmm.
Give me your money. Okay, what's the team worth? Let's just use an arbitrary figure, which is probably like $6 billion.
Okay.
Right? So you want to buy 10%, right? Okay. Give me $600 million right now. Cash. And you just got cash flow for, and that's what, because they got no say.
Right.
$600 million and they got nothing. They got a nice box, and I'm a part owner.
Yeah, exactly. It's strictly an investment. You want to make money out of it.
Yeah, I know, and then it's going to go, and you're going to make money on it.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. All right, let's see what else we got here. Ravi asks, what players on the defense could be kept if the Bears change to a 3-4 defensive scheme?
Well, first of all, it's a good question, but nobody plays 3-4 anymore. Base. I mean, yeah, is there some little bit, but most of the time, almost everybody's a nickel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not playing with that, so you're playing really with 4 defensive linemen. You're playing a 4-2-5.
Yeah.
And what it's gotten down to is your nickel is your base scheme.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at the Bears base scheme, there's 2 starting linebackers, not 3. And you got your 2 edges, and your 2 edges. Now the difference can be in what you ask those edges to do sometimes. Where in this scheme, they're not asked to cover it all.
Right.
Where and if you have a base 3-4, and even though you're in nickel, you could ask one of those guys to drop, a lot like what Fangio did, but Fangio played with the base a lot more, as everybody did. But now watch the Eagles. Fangio's a 3-4 guy now, right? Go watch the Eagles play and see how many times you see him in a base 3-4 beside none.
Yeah, I hear you. Laz wants to know your thoughts about Nick Caserio as a potential general manager for the Chicago Bears.
He's already a general manager for Houston.
If he were to become available,
why would he become available? He's only been there what 3 years?
I guess so.
3 and 4 years. Yeah, I know Nick is one of the few Belichick guys that has had any success.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I don't know him well. I know him. when I saw him on the road, he's kind of kept to himself, quiet. Then I've seen clips of him down in Houston, and he's, a lot more outgoing. He's stern, very stern. And I think he played Division III football, maybe Division. Yeah, I think he played at John Carroll. Not 100% sure of that, but I think another one of those John Carroll guys, which is in suburban Cleveland, Jesuit school. He's done a good job. He had to pick. Now I think Lovey got screwed over. I think they were playing games they were in tank mode to get some players, and they had the one guy, I can't even think of his name. He's there 1 year, and then Lovey's gets elevated for the next year until they could find the right guy, and the right guy was D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, he's a good coach. Jacko wants to know your thoughts about Cliff Kingsbury potentially being a Chicago Bears head coach.
I'm going to answer it this way. I think in all his years as a head coach, if you go back and look, I think he's only won 2 seasons. And he's a good offensive coach. Now, look at he had the number 1 pick in the draft when he was with Arizona. Won 1 year. I think they even got to the playoffs that 1 year. But when he was at Texas Tech, he had Patrick Mahomes, and he couldn't win. And he was in the Big 12, which is like, no defense league, but his teams have never played defense. And people want to say that he coached Caleb, and that is a fallacy. He did not coach Caleb. He was an analyst.
Yeah.
Okay, and an analyst now can coach. 2024, first year. 2023, analysts could not coach on the field. He could work with Caleb in the classroom, but he couldn't do anything with him on the field, game or practice. And there's pictures, somebody tried to say he coached him. They tried to show me a picture of him on the sideline. And I said, yeah, look at the picture real closely. Does he got a headset on?
Yeah.
He's a quarterback coach, and he wasn't a quarterback coach. He was an analyst.
Right. They have a relationship, Caleb and
Yes,
Cliff.
they do. They do. There's no question. And he's done a good job. And actually, what he's running in Washington is not a real sophisticated offense.
Yes.
He's doing stuff that Daniels did at LSU. And they're just doing a really good job with it.
Yeah. All right, let's go to.
But I mean, do you want him in the conversation?
No.
Yeah.
I don't. You know what?
No, I mean, would he be a guy that you want to interview? Probably, and maybe because of the thing. But what it gets down to, and it's not just that. Okay, you bring in Brady to talk to Brady. You bring in Johnson to talk to Johnson, and it's not just. See, people just think you hire the guy, and now because of the rules the way they are, especially guys like Brady and Johnson, hell, those 2 teams could be in the Super Bowl. You might not even get that. You can't even have a full-fledged interview with them. You can have that introductory interview one time, and they've even changed the rules on it. Used to be able to go interview them at their facility, and that might have changed. I know they changed the rules last year, and it might have to be like a Zoom call type thing, and it's a few hours max. Good coaching interviews last minimum 5 to 6 hours, and sometimes longer when you really get into the nitty gritty. And part of it, like if you've worked with a guy, let's just hypothetically, Poles has Dave Tobe on his list. He already knows Dave. He's worked with Dave. Okay, so you can cut through the bullshit. You know the background of the guy.
Right.
Part of it is getting to know the person. Getting to know about him, know his family, talk about it, or not know his family, talk about his family, why he got into coach. Just trying to find out a little bit about the guy. But if you've already got a relationship with him, you know it. So that cuts that part out. But now, you get in. I got to try to dig that up because I know it's downstairs somewhere. It was like 126 questions we had. And
I was going to ask you that. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, you want to get into scenarios with the guy just to find out, his reaction, how he'd handle things. You could use this year as a perfect example of all the BS that went on in the locker room,
right.
The going on, and how are you going to handle that?
Right.
That's
a great question to ask. Okay, so candidate, we have a culture problem right now because of all the losing. How can you switch the culture and then get even more specific questions after that? Wouldn't that be like a
but
major
you can even go into certain, this is what's going on between player A and coach A and blah blah blah, and that you got a good coach and you got a good player and you don't want to lose them both. How are you going to fix it? Just things like that. You want to dig into a lot of things. Obviously you get into coaching philosophy, but most important, and now it's different than like when we hired Lovey. And the difference is when we hired Lovey, you asked Lovey who you wanted, who your staff was going to be. And Lovey could guess, but he couldn't say exactly because the rules then are different. See, like Lovey wanted Marinelli to be his original coordinator. Okay. Tampa wouldn't let him go. At that time, all assistant coaches were just assistant coaches. And so it wasn't a better job. So, but now it's different. So now you can be, okay, I want to interview so-and-so to be my defensive coordinator. I want to interview so-and-so to be my assistant head coach. I want to interview so-and-so to be my passing game coordinator. All these are better jobs than the job he has. So you already know you're going to get the guy.
Yeah, right.
Right. And you've already, you've talked to the guy. Hey, look, you've got a pretty good idea who your staff is going to be when you're going in for the interview. So, and that's the important thing. Okay, if it's an offensive coach, who's your defensive coordinator? Three most important for an offensive coach. Three most important questions: who's your offensive or who's your defensive coordinator, your offensive line coach, and your defensive line coach? Those are real key questions. Same thing if you hire a defensive coach. Who's your OC? That's why I brought up the thing, like if Vrabel ended up being the guy and Daboll got fired, you could have an excellent OC and not have to worry about he's going to be gone in 3 years.
Good stuff, Greg. Excellent stuff. The name of Chico Rivera has come up a number of times, Ravi 3.5 and so forth. Would you consider him, would you consider giving him a head coaching interview? And if that didn't work out, if your head coach wanted to bring Chico in as a defensive coordinator, would you applaud that?
Yeah, he's damn good. As a defense coordinator, in a heartbeat. As a head coach, I love Chico. But he started off at Carolina way up here, and then it went south. He got let go. He goes to Washington. Of course, he's got to work for Daniel Snyder, and that didn't help him. But it did want to interview him, absolutely. But part of it too is, Chico's had some health problems, and granted, they're supposedly behind him, but you still got to find out about that. And then there's the other thing, he's like a head coach for 10 years in the league, got a lot of freaking money. Does he want to do it?
Exactly.
Okay. Exactly. You could have a John Fox situation where, I'm going to take this job. And then you're just not putting when things start to go south, you just stop putting all that energy into it. And John had help. John had heart issues. when he was at Denver. So, you got to have, those are things you got to have the answer. You can't just say, oh, yeah, Chico would be great. And Chico would be, given the right situation. But, there's questions you got to have answered. Why have interviews?
Yeah.
You got to have these things. You got to find these things out. And you got to have a good feeling that, and some people say, well, you're anti-Johnson. I'm not anti-Johnson. I don't know if he's the guy because so many of those guys just like that fail.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, it's what the process is for. You got to go through. And even when you go through it, and here's the thing, like, let's assume it's going to be Ryan Poles. And I firmly believe it is. Could I be wrong? Sure. He didn't go through the full process.
Mm-hmm.
He got handed a couple guys to talk to. Okay, and don't forget, he hired a head coach like 3 days after he got the job.
It was 2 days, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I say it wasn't all him. I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
It's, I just think that having been through what he's been through, and he knows what he's looking for, and it's a lot easier for him this time around.
Should be. I wish him a lot of luck if indeed he is the guy. Samo had a question. I know we've talked about when you are scouting players, you talk to everybody, the towel boy and so forth. Samo wants to know that when you're doing a head coach search, is that basically the same thing? You're talking to the candidates' previous GMs, coaches, even players that the candidate.
If you can, if you got the opportunity,
Yeah, so it's pretty extensive.
Yeah.
It's almost like a detective, finding out all about your background as much as
That's a good
possible.
question. You might even hire one.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because, particularly with the Bears' recent problems where some coaches were relieved of duties under mysterious circumstances, the Bears would be well advised to probably do a very thorough background check with a professional agency that does that stuff. You agree?
Yeah, look, we don't know exactly what happened with Williams. There's rumors.
Yes.
Okay.
Plenty
We
of
don't know if those rumors are true, not true, made up, or whatever. But let's just assume there's something to it. Who's going to know that?
That's right.
Who the hell is going to know?
Yep. And, will they be honest and candid about, those things? It's tough, man. It really is tough.
The way HR rules are, it's, you go to the previous employer, technically they can say, yeah, he worked here, did a good job. They're not going to give you, they don't have to. In fact, it's almost against the law.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
So you got to get people that you can get on the side. And do you want to talk to players? Darn right. See what players thought of the guy.
Absolutely. Marty asked a question. Did anyone like Parcells, or did he appear as big a jerk as he did in public?
Oh, players loved him.
Yeah.
They and you see films of him, and I still got their old VHS things. I got to probably see if I can get them converted to a DVD or something. But him fighting with LT or fighting with Sims and fighting with, like, Belichick when he was on the Manning cast would talk about it. But that was Parcells' personality. And I've said it a bunch. Bill knew he got to know everybody. So he knew what buttons to push with each player and with each coach.
Pretty cool. Laz asked a question that you actually volunteered earlier in the show. Laz asked, was Indy really going to fire Flus after his last year there. And
From
you
my
said,
understanding is absolutely there's no truth to it.
right. And Greg has a very good source over there. So, all right, let's see if I got any more as we wrap up here. What are your thoughts about Jim Caldwell potentially being a candidate for this job?
Jim's a pretty good coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the last stop he had was in Carolina. Frank Reich was there. Thomas Brown was the offensive coordinator. And one of the problems they had with the offense is you had Frank, Jim, and Thomas all had like pieces of what they wanted to do. They had a hodgepodge of an offense.
Mm.
And with Frank having final say, and I don't think it really worked out that well for Thomas because he couldn't do exactly what he wanted. But all that being said, Caldwell's had, to the best of my knowledge, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I think he's had some health issues too. And he's getting, you might want to look up his age. I think he's getting into his late 60s.
I think you're right. Let me look it up real quick.
It's, now it's like a Belichick thing. How
69.
long? Yeah, okay. How long is he really going to be coaching? How long is he capable? You went through this with John Fox once. Do you want to do that again? We want the right guy. I don't care who it is. We want the right guy.
Yep, indeed. And you want a guy who isn't going to go visit his family on Thanksgiving weekend once he's been promoted to head coach. I'm sorry, Thomas Brown, but that in my mind is not a good look. Thomas Brown did not work on the weekend that he was hired as head coach. He went to visit his family. I understand you haven't seen them in months, but please, there's some sacrifices you have to make. Anyway, AW wants to know, do you think that Vrabel would want his own GM?
There's people that say, I don't know what his relationship with John was.
Mm-hmm. John Robinson.
I know John pretty well. And I know that and John's getting interviewed for they're interviewing all these former GMs right now as part of their interview process. They did Thomas Dimitroff yesterday. They're doing John. They're doing Louis Riddick. I don't know what other names they got. But if Vrabel becomes a legitimate candidate, in other words, he's going to get interviewed, I'm going to make a call to John to find out. He might not give me much, but just to say, hey, what can you tell me?
Mm-hmm.
And go from there. Because, I got a good relationship with him. He's a good guy. So if it's him calling me, I'd do the same thing. So.
Well, 3.5 wants to know, if you were hired as a consultant for the coach search, how confident would you, Greg, be that you could hit a home run?
I'm always confident. So, but really, I love Dave Tobe, and I think Dave would be a great coach. But my first thing, and again, I played golf with Tobe 100 times. I know his wife real well. I know his kids. My first question to Dave is, who's your OC and who's your DC?
Right. That's the key thing right there. A lot of people have been talking about, let's see, where did I put that? Oh, darn. Anyway, Flex has asked, do you believe Pose can learn from his mistakes and get this team turned around during the offseason?
If somebody can't learn from their own mistakes, then they don't deserve to have the job.
Exactly. Somebody asked earlier, and I guess I lost it. Here it is. Best meat marinade. Greg, does Pose listen to your advice?
We don't have that kind of relationship.
You have talked to him, but yeah, it's not the type of, he's not going to call you in and say, what do you think, right?
No, it's not that. Not that
Maybe he
type of
should.
relationship. No.
Maybe he should.
I mean, is he going to call Brett Veach? Is he going to call Scott Pioli? Is he going to call Chris Ballard? Yes.
Mm-hmm. A lot of great questions, but most of them have been answered by Greg. So those of you who have just popped in the last half hour or so, please watch the start of the show. Your questions will be answered by Greg. So here we are, Greg, with the Detroit Lions coming in. You've already said that you are very confident the Bears will
I
win.
think they're going to win this game. I really do.
Right.
And unless there's somebody got hurt that I don't know about. I know Taylor got hurt, and I didn't listen to the post-game presser. Did they say anything about that? His injury?
You know what? After last night, for the first time all season, I said, screw that post-game presser.
But they got guys who can and replay. And hell, the mystery man came out of nowhere and blocked a punt yesterday, and Robinson. He made a play in the run game, too. That block punt, he almost killed that poor kid.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
When you start seeing that, holy shit. I mean, that guy's lucky he didn't get a broken leg.
Yep. Chim wants to know, how could you be confident the Bears are going to beat the Lions? And to Chim, I would say, look at the injury list.
No, it's not just that. It's they're a freaking dome team, man. They're going outside.
Yeah.
And they have played the majority of their games indoors, not in the elements. Now, and saying that, weather forecast so far isn't too bad. It's going to be like 30, high 20s, and sunny.
Yeah.
Fact, I'll look it up.
Yeah, let me look it up real quick.
No, I got it it's for here, but it's pretty much the same. It's always a couple degrees warmer downtown.
31 degrees at high, 19 at low, sunny.
Yeah, mine says 30 high, but yeah, and 22 sunny, 9% chance. I mean, so it's not that bad and not much wind. I mean, that's just, you can't really ask for better weather then, but it's still outdoors on grass in the elements. Detroit is beat up. Chicago should have beat them Thanksgiving Day. So yeah, it's Detroit might try to come back. They lost Montgomery, and you can't. The other guys, he's like a DeAndre Swift type guy, space player, and so can he take the pounding of having to be the guy?
Yeah, it's definitely it would be a change of pace. The minister, Charles Johnson, just joined us. Greg, is there anything you want to confess to the minister?
No.
You're keeping that private, right? All right. Any final thoughts that you have, Greg, before we close this chapter?
No, let's just we need a change of pace. We need to come on here next Monday and have a smile on our face. And
please, are you anxious for the season to end?
No, but it's hey, for you and I, it doesn't end. It really got a reporting off season. They're looking for a coach. Get a coach. Go into free agency. Go into the draft. There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
A lot of stuff to talk about. Absolutely. And hopefully we can talk about it with some wins under our belt. But yeah, this is, as Kevin Warren correctly said, that the coaching decision is going to impact this organization for the next 10 to 15 years. I don't think he was exaggerating. This really needs to be a home run. And I hope, they get it right. That's all I say. Minister,
I agree. I mean, the fans deserve it. The players deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that is a huge concern. Let me ask you this. You've been on Bears teams, that have had success, gone to the Super Bowl, and you've been on Bears teams that have had disappointing seasons. When you see players upset that their expectations for a season have not been met. What are your thoughts? Do you feel for them? Do you tell them to, toughen up, or, because you've gone through that experience of working shoulder to shoulder with players who have been grossly disappointed?
What I do is I watch the tape to see who is still playing hard
Yeah,
and
there you
who's
go.
throwing in the towel.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's guys throwing in the towel, I don't want them.
You mean like Gerald Everett? That guy threw in the towel weeks ago.
I haven't studied them, so I can't tell you that. But yeah, I want guys. If there's guys that are putting up the white flag and just going through the motions, I don't want them.
Yeah,
regardless of what their contract is. Like I said, I mentioned that Ford kid. He got an opportunity. See, he looked at it this way. I'm on a new team. I got an opportunity to play.
Mm-hmm.
So it means I got an opportunity to find a home. I'm going to play hard. And he did play hard. And he made plays. And he plays a position of need because Billings is out and you need another guy who can just hold that point of attack, and get some penetration to disrupt. And that's exactly what he did.
Indeed.
And he'll probably be able to play more snaps next week. I was surprised he played as many as he did. Hell, he's only here for walkthroughs.
Yeah. And, he did good. So that was great. I can't get over, these third down problems the defense is having. It's,
they're playing a lot of zone when you got some guys who can play, are pretty good press cover guys.
Are you
disappointed? Then, the other thing, he has Stevenson has the interception, so that's good. But then there was that 1/3 long to the near sideline. He has the guy 1.5, 2 yards short on a third down, and it looks like he's maybe on the verge of doing a horse collar type tackle, but he could have changed it. And he kind of took his hand off, and it ends up the guy gets another couple yards and gets the first down. And it's like, man, you got to make that play.
Yeah. 3.5 has asked this question a couple of times, so I want to squeeze it in here. It says, do we have a roster issue or scheme issue? And I think in an earlier version of his question, or is it something else? And I'm assuming that he meant, coaches, GMs, or what have you.
Well, you got to on really both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. You've got people running both sides of the ball that got different philosophies than what you started the season with. And so that's part of and you're playing with the same playbook now. So you got to do things. I've been disappointed in Eric. He's been playing a lot of zone when he's got some, I think they got some guys who can play press man pretty good. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they don't do more of that, but hey, he's the DC and he's going to be held accountable to it.
Yeah. We're still getting votes for you to become the general manager of the team.
No. Too old.
At least advisor to the general manager. What the hell is going on here? All right. Wait a minute. One more. Aldo, how do you and Greg feel about Kellen Moore as head coach? Why not? I mean, that was fast.
He just doesn't do a whole lot for me. And I don't know him. He's in Dallas a long time. Then he was out in the West Coast last year. He's with the Eagles where's he? Yeah, Eagles this year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's some guys that are coordinators, and that's their calling. Mm-hmm. That was probably Flus. He's a coordinator.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, and that's it. I mean, again, is it a guy you might want to talk to? Sure, because am I being fair in saying that? It's just, you've been watching the guy for years. He doesn't do anything for me. Mm-hmm. Like I'm watching because we see Brady's name, and I don't know if he's ready. I mean, to be totally honest, but then I'm watching him, and supposedly going against the best offensive mind in football, or so they say. The next pope. They've already anointed him, and Brady completely outdid him in that game on Sunday.
He sure did. Yeah, I was asked to ask you about that. What do you think about Brady versus Johnson? And Brady certainly won that battle, huh?
Well, I tweeted that out, posted it on X like right after the game. Might even been during the game.
Yeah. All right, well, that will do it for this edition of GTF. We'll be back here next Monday at 11 a.m. We switched our show this week to talk about the Bears. We were hoping for a win, but it didn't happen. The Bears will be back home at Soldier Field, and Greg has a good feeling about next 2 weeks, our home games.
Which brings up the question for our future planning. Because you got a game, 2 games the week after. Next week we got the Monday game,
right?
Or rather, Sunday game. Christmas is Wednesday, and then a Thursday game.
Yeah.
So are we going to do something on Friday?
Yeah, I think we should do Monday, Friday, and then that following week we'll play it by ear.
We'll do it like we did before, like Wednesday or Thursday or something.
Yeah, something like that. We're tanking. We're not going to win. We're tanking. I got one last thing. You don't believe that the Bears should tank. I mean, you said it's nice if we lose because we move up in the draft, but you want to win, right?
Oh, yeah, I think they need to win. I really do.
Yes. You can't do this to these players.
Caleb Williams needs to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. He definitely needs to win. All right, with that, we'll close our show. And by the way, when is our next show? Our next show is tonight, Buffon 55. We've got a good one planned, so hopefully you'll tune in live at 8 p.m. or just check it out on demand. And the show
before you go, what are you, me, and Mike going to do something?
Yeah, I still haven't worked out a time, but I definitely want that to happen. So I'll work. How about if we do it as a season recap, and then that way you guys can debate certain issues and stuff, because Mike right now is ready to push the entire Bears organization off a ledge. He's not on the ledge.
He's a radio guy. Of course he is.
I love it. We'll make it happen immediately after the end of the season, regular season. All right, everybody. Take care now. Bye-bye.
See you later.